Jimbo Fisher continues to be a force on the recruiting trail. Of course, that's what he was hired to do at Texas A&M, and he is fulfilling those needs. And let's get the latest from Andrew Hattersley on 247 Sports. Gig 'em 247. Of course, Texas A&M trying to do big things here in 2021, but also looking forward to 22 and 23. And Jimbo Fisher loves his quarterbacks and loves to coach them up. And he may have a good one here. Andrew, in Eli Holstein, 7th rated at his position out of Louisiana.
Yeah, he made a big fan out of me this weekend. I went and saw him at the Pylon 7-on-7 National Championship in Dallas that was here, and it was my first time really getting a chance to see him in action, and was really impressed with his one of the things when you look at Jimbo Fisher, and he kind of places a big emphasis on the intangible parts. When you talk about leadership and demeanor and just what Eli Holstein brings to the table, I think it's a great ad for Texas A&M. They offered him in February and pretty much locked in on him right away, and that was kind of their guy in the class they wanted to go after. And then, but Jimbo Fisher is big on having you throw in front of him before he really truly will take you. And Eli Holstein had the chance to throw in front of him a couple weeks ago, and Eli Holstein said, told him he was one of the few guys that he hasn't really had feedback for yet. He didn't really have anything quite that he needed to work on. And he ended up staying. I think he came in on the Wednesday night he went to the camp on the Friday, stayed through like the Saturday though. And that was pretty much when he decided Texas A&M was the spot for him. And, him and Jimbo Fisher and Daryl Dickey have really built up a great relationship so far. And, it seems to kind of be a perfect match. Everybody, on both sides really kind of locked in on each other.
Louisiana, obviously just a state away, a key recruiting place, even though the population's not high. The population rate of NFL players in Louisiana, last I checked, was the best in the country.
Boy, they turn out some talent, that's for sure. And they've got some really good players in the 2023 class. And, I think that's one of the benefits to getting Eli Holstein locked in early is, they've got one of the top safeties in the country next year, and in Kylan Jackson that just happens to play on the same team as Eli Holstein. So, I know he's going to be a big recruiter. He said he had already kind of gotten into certain guys' ears about joining him. And I think that's one of the things he really wanted to get the decision out the way and get to recruiting for his class. And then, you're going to probably be battling LSU for Shelton Sampson. And, LSU doesn't really let guys out of their sights and their little, anywhere around the campus. So they do a really good job locking down the state, and so that's going to be a really tough battle, but they've got a ton of talent for 2023 already.
LSU's got their own concerns to deal with off the field right now. That may be raising some concerns with some families and some parents right now. So they will be dealing with that for who knows how long. We got Andrew Hattersley on the line, everybody. Gig 'em 247 Sports. Andrew joins us on a regular basis. We lean on him for Texas A&M breakdowns, both on the recruiting side and getting us set for the 21 season.
Yeah.
And so everybody check him out on Gig 'em 247, of course. So, Andrew, since the last time we talked, Texas A&M has brought in 3 for the 22 class.
Yeah.
So we'll start with the safety, Jared Kerr.
Yeah, so Jared Kerr is a guy that really brings a lot of versatility and athleticism to the table. They view him as a safety, he can play nickel, he can play corner, and one of those kind of versatile guys that they love to bring in nowadays that just helps you, mix and match in the secondary. And so that's the biggest thing with him is his athleticism and his playmaking ability is the thing that people raise about. We've got him as a 4-star on 24/7 Sports, and so really good ad at the safety spot. And I know A&M's going to try to add a couple more guys at that position, and this is a really good start.
Yeah, top 40 in the state doesn't mean a whole lot in other states, but in Texas, you're a premier player. You're a four-star, a solid four-star, top 16 at his position at 6 feet 185. Another one you could put in that category that just came in the last couple of weeks would be Ish Harris at linebacker, 48th rated in the state according to the 247 rankings, 37th rated linebacker at 6'3", 195.
Yeah, so this guy is a true athlete in the truest sense of the word. When you talk to the folks around Pilot Point, he actually started out at defensive end when he was there, and then they moved him back to linebacker. But he was a guy during the recruiting process that actually had to sift through all the different pitches that he was getting because he had A&M and others pitching him on linebacker as kind of a safety linebacker type of guy. You have certain schools that were pitching him as being a safety. You have certain schools that him pinned as a running back on the other side of the ball. And so he kind of had to, figure out what was the best fit for him. It was actually really the academic side of A&M. He wants to go into agricultural engineering, and so A&M was kind of the perfect school for him. The further down in the process he got, I remember talking to him in March or April, and that was the first thing he mentioned. Is he said, A&M was really a school that had caught his eye for that reason because he knew he wanted to go into agriculture, and at A&M had the perfect major for him. And so I think from there they were always fighting ahead. I thought they kind of really grabbed hold of the recruitment in June when he had his official visit scheduled for the second weekend of June, and he popped in the first weekend for an unofficial visit. And so, that kind of raised the thought of, okay, well, he's there back-to-back weekends and decisions coming up next month. And, I think he just really felt comfortable around that coaching staff. And I would also give a hat tip to Noah Thomas, who's already in the class down in League City. And those two have built up a really close friendship and have actually talked for months about rooming together. And so, Noah Thomas played the role of recruiter very well, and managed to get a really versatile player in the class who I think he will start out at linebacker. They kind of, I think when I asked him where they saw him fitting in, he said an edge, pass rushing, athletic beast was the way he put it to me. So I think that's really where he kind of fits in, and I think it's a great ad for Texas A&M, and they're going to add a couple guys at that position as well. And Martrell Harris and Ish Harris are a great start to the linebacker spot because they didn't sign one during the 2021 class.
Yeah, to some degree, a lot of the traditional positions that were played on defense years ago are out the door, not completely, but to a certain extent. In that back seven, you just need guys that can cover space.
You're looking for guys with athleticism, and I think the biggest thing with him, watching him, he was also in action at Pylon, and I need to go out and see him this fall. But his length is really something that caught my eye, just in terms of in coverage in the red zone. He gets his hands on quite a few balls because he just has such a long wingspan and reach, and he forced a turnover late in the game, tipping a pass up in the air to his teammate in the end zone that led to an interception, and had got his hands on a couple other balls, and his change of directions also really good as well.
Andrew Hattersley's on the line talking up Texas A&M football. It's always a good time talking Aggies with Andrew, and gets us updated on recruiting as well. So in terms of scouting kickers, that's always a difficult proposition, but you need them. They're not football players, but you need them, and they decide a few football games here and there. And if you need a 51-yard kick with 8 seconds left in the game, you better have a good one. Ethan Mazulski comes all the way from the state of Washington just here in the last few days.
Yeah, so there was kind of a question of if A&M was going to take a kicker or not, and they were really transparent with Ethan throughout this process because they brought in Alex McPherson, who is generally considered the top kicker in the country, and he went on official visits to Auburn, A&M, and Florida, and so they really, I think they were kind of fighting from behind that entire race, but they had Ethan as well, and so as soon as Alex McPherson made his decision to go to Auburn a couple days ago, they immediately offered Ethan, who also came in on an unofficial visit and just absolutely loved the school during June. And he committed on the spot. So they ended up landing that commitment yesterday. And talking to his trainer, one of the two things that he mentioned, we really dove into kicking yesterday. We really got into scouting reports on kicking, and he said just the height and and the way the ball kind of jumps off his foot, where at a couple people mentioned at an NFL level, which I thought was very notable, and he didn't mind at all coming from the West Coast. He said that Texas A&M just offered something different for him that was unmatched anywhere else. He had offers from Washington State, Oregon State, and Washington. So but he said he loved the weather in Texas. He loved that it was warm. He had no interest in kicking. I'm from Wisconsin, so I totally understand this. He had no interest in kicking in the cold or kicking a frozen ball, and so Texas A&M kind of hit the perfect spot for him. And I think they already have a couple kickers on campus, but with guys moving around and having the extra year, I think Jimbo Fisher wanted to make sure they were covered at that spot, and that's how it all came. It came together very fast, but in the same way, it's been in the works for a couple weeks. But yeah, explosiveness and height. And I spent yesterday afternoon watching videos of him kicking, and it really does jump off his foot. He's got a repeatable motion, a simple motion, and I think it's a good ad.
All you have to do is check out some late night Pac-12 football in November from the Pac-12 North Division in particular. We're not talking USC, UCLA, but from places like Corvallis, Oregon, and Pullman, Washington. And there's a lot of rain and sleet and 38-degree nights that aren't the best for kickers to show off what they can do.
You don't want to be kicking in that weather, and you have windy nights, and it makes life difficult. So the weather is beautiful in Texas.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Andrew Hattersley joins us to break down Texas A&M recruiting. And if you check out the recruiting rankings on 247 Sports this time of year, you're going to find some unusual names near the top of the list at times. But when it comes to Texas A&M at third in the SEC, 11th in the country, that will hold, if not get better, as we get toward National Signing Day in December.
Yeah, I hold my breath because further down the list, you see, Alabama's starting to make their usual creep up the list. And so, June, July, I try to be careful when it comes to rankings. But the A&M's off to a great start. They've got, Bryce Anderson's one guy that'll make his decision at the end of the month. He's down to Texas and Texas A&M. So that's going to be, when you look at momentum for both classes, that is just a huge, huge battle that those two are engaged in right now. And both are probably going to get him on campus at the end of the month. And then he's probably less than a month away from making a decision. And so, that's when you talk about the recruiting rankings, I think that'll be a huge boost to either class that he chooses to go to.
Andrew, we always appreciate getting the update from you. Thanks for stopping by.
My pleasure. Yeah. Thank you for having me.